Hey there, welcome to another installment of Rocket MSP podcast. I'm Steve Taylor, your host. Today I am joined by Dor Eisner. How are you, sir?
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Steve. I'm good.
Excellent.
For
I
you?
hope I pronounced that correctly. I didn't ask you before we started.
Yeah, exactly. Dor Eisner. Yes, that's the name.
So I got to ask, where are you? Because the background is phenomenal looking.
Yeah, I'm in Tel Aviv actually right now.
Okay.
Guards is a US company, but our R&D and product is in Tel Aviv, and our sales and operation and support is in the US. Is in Florida right now. So I'm splitting my time between Florida and Tel Aviv, and now I'm in Tel Aviv, and this is the background. This is the landscape of the Tel Aviv city, main road. Late in the afternoon.
Man, I'd love to get out there one of these days. Israel is such a beautiful country from what I've had an opportunity to see. Obviously, only on like TV and YouTube, but that's neither here nor there. So, um,
Also,
guards, like,
also, also the nation of cybersecurity. Just for the record.
yeah. And speaking of which, you have a really cool background. So you were a member of the Israeli military intelligence. So I mean, you're not messing around. You've been doing this for years, and cybersecurity is your specialty.
Yeah, actually, I started my journey in the cybersecurity space 20 years ago. I served as a commander in the Israeli intelligence force for 5 years. And back in the days, no one talked about cybersecurity in the world, but we did a lot of cybersecurity for the government, for the army, and from there I was in the agencies for a few years, and in the last decade I moved to building startups in the cybersecurity space, and helping the world become safer for in the beginning for enterprises, and now in this venture we are trying to build a safer digital world for small businesses.
So, going from public sector, military sector, to private sector, what would you say the advantages and disadvantages are of both working for military government or working privately?
Yeah, so military government and stuff, the budget is unlimited, and the
That's
soldier,
true.
so it's about and the challenge for the private sector, and especially for small businesses that eventually it's the backbone of the economy, is to deal with cybersecurity, and to think about the risk and to deal with the risk, and shifting from the government to the private sector and now to small businesses. We are seeing a tremendous opportunity to help, and actually to empower those customers to be better protected.
Very cool. So normally I would want to talk about your company and your product at the end, and try to establish you as kind of the cybersecurity expert, and you know take people on a journey that way. But I think it actually makes more sense for us to talk about your company and product first, because I think it's going to make more sense for people to put the pieces together when they understand, okay, so he's talking about this, and this, and his product just kind of handles all that for us, and this is why he knows all this stuff. So talk to me about guards. What is it?
Cool. So Guards is a product that is a subscription actually that provide the all-in-one security tailored for small businesses, empowering the MSPs to provide better cybersecurity for their clients. So bottom line, we took the best of breed in terms of security and protecting the top attack vectors. And when I'm talking about the attack vectors, so today most of the threats targeting small businesses coming from the emails, the devices, so phishing, ransomware, data protection, user behavior, and building the awareness culture. And that's what we are doing at Guards. We developed a product that is a SaaS service, so you don't need, to get, a complex, a security expert or advisors and stuff. You just get to Guards, and self-serve, you can get all the security components in a subscription mode, monthly subscription to your clients as an MSP. We are providing this service purely for the channel, purely for MSPs. So the platform is built from the ground up to provide MSPs with the security that they need to protect small businesses, clients at scale. So that's what we are doing.
So is Guards basically a one-stop shop? Because I see that your product offers, email security, cloud app security, device protection, and even cyber insurance. So are you basically saying if you have Guards and you implement everything the way it's supposed to be implemented, we're able to protect all of your stuff and insure you, and you're not worried about the insurance money because you know that your product is, the bee's knees, so to speak, and going to keep everything safe.
Exactly. So we are actually one of, I can say the first vendor that is offering to the MSP community a platform to secure and insure their clients holistically,
Mm-hmm.
in a way that, first of all, we are monitoring the digital footprint of the clients. So analyzing, the external footprint, the assets that are out there in terms of, external vulnerabilities, exposed services, so on and so forth. And then we are starting to monitor the internal environment, connecting to the Microsoft 365 or the Google Workspace, analyzing the user behavior, the data in the cloud, exposed data that is not allowed, MFA stuff, security posture of the users, and a lot of other stuff around the cloud applications. And then we are starting to protect the email, so scanning all the inbound traffic, analyzing for malware, fraud activities on the email. But this is not enough, because once you analyze and you identify that there is a threat, it's also about blocking the threat, putting it in quarantine, and building the awareness culture of the employees. So we have an awareness module that is generating like phishing simulation and a lot of awareness campaign around for the users, for the clients. And in the end, we have our own agent that is protecting the devices and is running on top of the Defender or the X-Protect, so protecting the endpoint of the clients. Once the customer is protected by clients through the MSP, we are offering a cyber insurance coverage that is tailored for the Guardz client. So we are not the carrier, we are not the underwriters, but we are the ones that are streamlining the insurance coverage to the client in a cost-effective way. So that's what Guardz is providing today to the MSP community.
So you're not the carrier, not the underwriter.
Yeah,
You're just making it easier for our clients to get the protection and the insurance they need all under one umbrella.
correct. Because if you get just the coverage, it's really not enough, to get your business secured. And if you get only the security, we believe that, you need to get the coverage. So with the Guardz protection, you can get both in one single platform and even get better pricing, cost, save costs, and streamline, the all operations around the security of the business into one single platform.
Excellent. So I know that there's a growing list of things that uh, MSPs should be doing for their clients in order to not only qualify for cyber insurance today, but also get the best rates for cyber insurance.
Mhm.
Are you able to speak to maybe like the high level, just kind of like the checklist, the bullet points of what every MSP needs to be doing today?
So few carriers, different carriers asking for different things, but the standard for to get the foundation to get cyber insurance is to have MFA in place, EDR in place, protecting the devices, secure email in place, and scanning for vulnerable operation systems and external services that exposed, making sure that the business is protected to some extent, and also doing like backups. So that's the foundation to get a quote. But if you don't have all the things in place, probably your pricing is going to be very high. And with the Guardz platform, we are providing all the solutions, all the services that need, to be qualified for cyber insurance, but also making sure that, the insurance is active over time, because the challenge with cyber insurance is even if you get, a quote and you bind the quote, if there is a claim and, bad things happen sometimes and you have a claim, the carrier will come and will check if the security that you committed for is worked properly. And with the guard solution, you don't need to be concerned about it, because we are the guys that providing the protection and the coverage, and we are liable for the claims if something bad happens.
So you're even accepting the liability if somebody does get hacked and has an issue and needs to make a claim.
Exactly. That's why we are providing the coverage as part of the platform, because we believe that, to be secured and to be insured, that's the right way, to go for SMBs going forward. So that's that's our way to market, and that's our way, to protect small businesses.
That's really awesome, man. All right, so let's talk about some of these things that you have a big list of things that you're able to speak to as an expert, and I'd like to touch on as many of these things as possible. Um, so we talked a little bit about cyber insurance, threat intelligence. What should an MSP be doing today when it comes to threat intelligence? Because I'll be honest, reading some of these articles and CVEs and all, it, it's it's a really difficult read for me, and I just don't like to do it, and I
Yeah.
don't do it. So what should MSPs actually be doing?
Yeah, the threat intelligence world is super complex. My previous venture, my previous startup was about threat intelligence. Actually, we developed a dark web threat intelligence platform where we scraped the dark web, analyzed it at scale, and provided the information for big enterprises, big banks, big financial, in the likes of Mastercard and big companies. And threat intelligence is a super important component in protecting your business. But for small businesses, it's more about the actual thing that, actionable threat intelligence that is relevant to your business. And that's what we are trying to build with Guards. We are trying to provide you, with the exposed services, with the credential leakage that can, affect, business email compromise and, a few different attacks. But coming back to the threat intelligence space, we are seeing, in general, in the last 2-3 years, an increase in the attack as a service tools in the dark web. And nowadays, there is not a lot about, the vulnerabilities themselves. It's about how many phishing tool as a service, ransomware tool as a service you can find out there in the wild. And that's what caused, the cyber crisis for small businesses, because it's super easy to get a phishing tool as a service and just to start spray and pray. You are not going to use, if I'm a cyber criminal, I'm not going to use this automated attack as a service tools against big businesses, against the enterprise market, because it's just not going to fly. It won't fly. But for against small businesses, it's definitely a lucrative target, for those kind of tools. And that's all about the dark web right now. So attack as a service tools, and we are monitoring those tools and putting, different protections in our stack in order to provide, the better, the best protection for our clients. Um, and around the vulnerabilities that are out there in the wild, it's definitely part of the Guards platform to make sure to provide you the recent vulnerabilities that related to your stack, types of exposed services that are out there. For example, if you have any server that is, exposed publicly, we will monitor it from the external perspective, and we will identify and alert if there is something that you need to take care of.
Okay, so with Let's talk about compliance a little bit, because compliance is one of those things that I think is overwhelming for some MSPs. In fact, I think some MSPs don't do compliance. My MSP, we have standardized our services, whether a client needs to be compliant with regulatory compliance or not. All of our clients adhere to CIS controls version 18. So we've got a very extensive checklist of everything that we go through when we're onboarding clients and everything. What what have you found have you found that like one framework or security model or whatever is like better than another, more comprehensive than another?
You know, generally speaking, in terms of compliance, there is no one fit, but generally speaking, if you go on the high level of compliance, the SOC 2 type of compliance, you will probably get, everything in place already, to be compliant with all the other, local regulation stuff. But it's definitely, based on the industry. But we are seeing, the compliance stuff, same like the insurance, cyber insurance stuff, starting to trickle down, into the small business market. We believe that, our security stack and, can support the compliance area, but we are not going after, making sure that, the compliance is there, because it's highly fragmented, market, the compliance, and you need to be, on top of, many things, and it's definitely, important for businesses to be compliant. So we definitely support, we definitely can help, with the security stack, and making sure, that the businesses are secure. That's the most important thing.
So obviously, it sounds like Guards is going to help with the security stack and compliance and whatnot. Does Guards currently have any documentation with how your platform aligns to various controls and frameworks?
So currently no, we are not there yet.
Okay.
Yeah, but we believe, for example, we are like compliant SOC 2 type 2, so our platform is compliant, and, we're making sure that, all the development cycle, all the operation stuff, super secured. Um, but we are not after the compliance market at the moment.
Got it. Well, and that's important for MSPs to differentiate too. Is it's one thing to say, everything that we do is CIS controls compliant or however the right way to say that is, right? It's another thing to say I'm going to start targeting dentists, and now we have to adhere to HIPAA compliance for all of those companies. I would say any MSP needs to do their homework and determine, all right, CIS, if we're saying CIS V18 is our base, our baseline, then we need to also align CIS with HIPAA and figure out, and I can't think of the word, what deficiencies do we have, and what do we need to add in order to make sure we're also meeting the HIPAA compliance. So that's good that you're basically saying, hey, we're not trying to be everything to everyone. We're trying to be cybersecurity focused for the small and medium enterprise, so that way they have something that not only keeps them secure, but keeps them protected with the insurance side of things as well. And I think that's honestly that's really cool, man. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely, absolutely. Bottom line, as an SMB, and also as an MSP, you want to have the peace of mind. You want to have the easy or the simple way, to manage your security for the clients. But you also want to transfer the risk. You don't want to take the liability, if something bad happens, and that's what Guards is providing to you as an MSP, for your SME clients.
So let's talk about the MSP that's not using guards today,
Yeah.
because well, let's be honest, there's many that are not using guards today, and I'm sure you would love to change that. But let's help the MSP that's not today. So what should an MSP be doing when it comes to like threat intelligence and vulnerability management and that type of stuff? Like, is there, I don't know, like a forum or a website that they can subscribe to where they can stay up to date with this type of information?
So it's like first of all, threat intelligence is, coming back to the threat intelligence, it's a complex
Yeah.
world. You need to be on top of, many feeds, many collections, and you need to make sure that it's relevant to you. So
Mm-hmm.
it's about we believe that it's about protecting what matters. And like in the end of the day, most of the attacks today against small businesses are mainly, phishing, ransomware, as I mentioned, data protection, and about user behavior, and and manipulate the user with fraud. So take for example the phishing. Back to the, you can have all the security in place, like that you believe is good, but
Mm-hmm.
in the end of the day, to protect phishing efficiently, you need to have a multi-layered approach. What it mean by saying multi-layered approach? It's not just that you have a gateway that is scanning the image. That's okay. If you have it, that's fine. But it's about, if there is a phishing attack, should you block it? And should you also build the awareness training for this employee? Should you monitor if there is a credential leakage out there to be aware that this employee is more like likely to be attacked by a phishing scam? So, uh, so it's more like an holistic approach that you need to take for an MSP to protect your small business clients, and it's not just about being on top of the different feeds of threat intelligence or being on top of the different vulnerabilities that are out there. That's super important. It's more about the day-to-day protecting the business from the top attack vectors that are out there today against small businesses. And we believe that, taking the approach of monitoring 24/7 and being able to remediate it in the right time, the right way, that's the right way to keep the business, secure.
So I'll say this: it's starting to become, I don't want to say ridiculous in a bad way. Like I don't want to say like vendors are doing things wrong, but it's becoming like impossible as an MSP to figure out which which cybersecurity awareness platform is the best. And I use the best because I think I don't know. It's tough because like each of them have their merits. Each of them say they're the best. Uh, no matter which platform you go with, you're going to have a whole bunch of users that just don't do it, right? So like, how do we as MSPs overcome what I think ultimately turns into decision fatigue when it comes to picking these platforms, and then how do we also encourage end user adoption once we've picked that platform?
Yeah, that's a great question, Steve. So first of all, let's start cyber awareness, building the awareness culture of your small business clients. Super important, critical
Mm-hmm.
component protecting the business. And I agree with you. There are, dozens of vendors out there that are providing a cyber awareness, and that's why we decided that, first of all, about Guards, cyber awareness is part of the service, is included in the package. Also, the awareness campaigns, the videos, and making sure that the employees, that the users are, watching the videos, answering, a quick, quiz, and also providing with the phishing simulation, active phishing simulation, to make sure that, after they saw the video and they answer the quiz, there is no, like a phishing a case, with them. So we are doing both. But in terms of the vendor, fatigue, or the vendor, like decision fatigue that you mentioned, I believe that in the end of the day, it's about the implementation. You know, you can have the best tool in the world, but if you don't know how to implement it, or if you don't know how to monitor it and to make sure that it's working properly, so it's useless. So I believe that MSPs should think about the ease of use, and it's better as easy the platform to manage and to deploy, better for the MSP to provide security for the clients. So the decision should be how easy the platform is and how cost effective is for you as an MSP, to scale it across all your clients. Because if you have this vendor only for few of your clients, because of the cost, that's not effective. Because in the end of the day, you will have a client that can't afford it, or it's not part of the package of this client, and then this client will be a target. So I hope
Okay.
this addressed the question.
No, yeah, it's an excellent answer, I think. So when it comes to, I have an answer that I just am going to throw off the cuff here. Um, I wonder how effective. I wonder how legal it is for you to say to a client, "Hey, look, all of our clients, we have do this cybersecurity awareness training, and here's our regular price. If we get all of your users 100% adoption of this training, and we get everyone to stay current with all the tests and all the trainings, then we're going to give you this X dollar discount, and use that as a way to encourage end user adoption of this type of stuff. I don't know. What do you think? Is that
So
gimmicky? Would it work?
yeah, I don't think it's going to fly with SMBs, because in the end of the day, they are paying you as an MSP, to keep their business secured, and they don't want like to get motivation from this point of view. But we believe that it's about showing the value and the threats, the targeting the business over time as an MSP. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why we build in the Guards platform like ROI reports that you as an MSP can generate, in a click of a button, on specific tenants that you onboard to the Guards platform, and then you can actually show the client, hey, these users didn't complete, their awareness training this month or this quarter, and therefore, the risk of the business, because in the end of the day, it's about, the clients, they know to analyze, a risk in numbers. They don't know how to analyze a risk in vulnerabilities, or awareness, or phishing campaigns, etc. So if you can, and that's what we are doing, aggregating all the different alerts in the platform into a security risk that you can go and to present to the customer, to your client, and say, hey, this is your security risk, this is the benchmark in the industry, this is where you are today, and this is the reason that your security score is not good.
I like that, and looking at it, taking the business risk approach is probably going to resonate better with the business owners and the decision makers. Of what's an extra $1,000 a year if we're giving them $100 off a month for doing this training, when we say, hey, look at all the risk to your business. And uh, let's circle back around to, if we are using guards and a client does not stay up to date with their cyber awareness training, does that mean that they're at risk of not being covered if they have a cyber claim they need to make?
That's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. Our risk calculation is tied with the premium of the coverage. So with the policy of the coverage. So once your customer is secured by guards, we are making sure that the customer, we are alerting, and every time that there is an alert, the risk score is changing accordingly. But you have 30 days in our platform to solve the issue and to bring your security score to above 90 in the platform. So making sure that in the end of the day, it's also showing the value to the client for the security offering or the security services that you are providing, because they don't know, the small businesses, they don't know nothing about security. They trust you as an MSP to be the expert. And if you
Mm-hmm.
are not showing them the value of your that you are an expert, so why should they care? So you need to make sure that over time, once a month, once a quarter, you provide them like with a detailed report about this is what happened last month across all of your users. This is what we did as an MSP. I did to prevent or to mitigate the risk. This is your security posture, and and so on and so forth. So
So I have, I promise it's going to make sense. I have a company that I use for my car insurance, and the company name's irrelevant. But how they charge me is, I I pay per mile driven, and the amount I pay per mile is based on my driving score. And my driving score is acquired by having this app running in the background whenever I'm driving. It's basically seeing what time of day it is, what roads I'm taking, if I'm doing hard braking, if I'm using my phone while driving,
yeah.
that type of stuff. So it comes up with a score, and then it charges me based on my score per mile. Is that kind of what Guards is doing with the cyber insurance, where you've got X number of users, here's your cyber risk score because reasons, and then here's what we're going to charge you based on all that?
Okay, so that's the vision. That's not what we have today. What we have today
Okay,
is static premium, and
got it.
we are making sure that the security score of the business, the posture of the business, is stay on a good posture. But the vision is, to be a dynamic insurance, same like I assume it's a Metro Mile or something in the likes that you are using for your car insurance. So
No, it's Nobler, Noblr.
yeah, so
It's
there are few in the market that are offering
yeah.
car insurance in the same way, and we believe that cyber insurance should be also, count by by your security posture and be dynamic over time. So
Well, hey Dor, I really appreciate you hopping on here and answering my questions, and just sharing more about your company and your vision for what cybersecurity should look like for MSPs today. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we sign off?
now, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed the conversation, Steve, and I think that in the end of the day, our strategy is to help MSPs to provide better security for SMEs, and we are here to support. If someone want to get any kind of training, help with building the security offering, using guards or without using guards, feel free to reach out to me. You can put my LinkedIn, or and I would love to help and to assist, because we believe in the community. And thank you for having me, Steve.
Absolutely. Guys, for those of you listening, you can go to the Guards website, which is guardz.com. Or if you're not in America, guardz.com. Go check out their website, guards.com. Um, Dor, thanks so much, man. This was a treat. Come back on sometime. Demo your software with me, and let's show MSPs what this product's all about.
I would love to. Let's do it in the next session.
Great.
Thank you,
Take
Steve.
care. Take
Bye
care,
bye.
everybody. See you on the next one.